In this tutorial video, we're going to be working with the 6-word website, which is also maybe called the blocks.html site. And you may have seen this before. This particular build of this page is going to be focused on responsiveness. So we're going to build it with a mobile first design in mind and then expand that to look nice on a desktop also. So we're going to be working with media queries, which are going to allow us to query or figure out which size screen this is being displayed on and adjust our CSS settings to specific screen sizes. For this, I'm using a program called Brackets. It works very similarly to Komodo, and I've got the 6-word website folder already created. In there is a blocks.html. There's a blocks.png, which is the preview of what we're going to be creating. What we're going to build in this tutorial is similar to this PNG. It won't look exactly the same. We'll have a few more things to it. But it'll be the same structure basically. And then we have in our images folder, we have an animated GIF and a JPEG. We'll use it as those as backgrounds. So what I want to do is I want to open my blocks HTML in my editor, and you can see, if you've seen this before, this is familiar to you. I've changed a few things in the content to make it a little more logical. But we have our character set, UTF-8, we have our title already set up, we have our link to our CSS, which we just need to fill in the blank. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. We're just going to call it blocks.css. And then I'm going to just go ahead and create a CSS document, save it. I want to make sure I save it in the same folder, so I want to save it in that 6-word website right along next to blocks.html. And you can see over here it showed up, which is great. So there I've got my CSS. I'm going to go ahead and add my character set. And we should be good to go there. So back to my HTML. I just need to add some code in to mark up the content. So I start by creating a wrapper, and that's simply a division with an ID of wrapper. Oops. And that's going to end at the bottom of all my content. So the next step is to add our header, and we're going to use the HTML5 header element. Inside of our header, we're going to tell it that our H1 exists there. So then the next thing we need to do is create the nav around menu. So we'll pull up menu into nav, make menu in H2, and we'll close nav. After nav, we have the main content area. There is an HTML element called main. Main has some stipulations behind its use. You can only use it one instance in an HTML document, and it cannot contain elements like header or nav or footer. Cannot contain elements that will be deemed to be consistent across a website. It can only contain elements that are deemed to change from page to page. It's essentially the area that you're going to be changing content in on every page of your website. So inside of main, we're going to have an H3 for main content, the text, and then we're going to divide the rest of main into 2 columns. So we're going to create divs, and I'm going to give these class names. First class name I'm going to give it is call for column. That just basically defines it as a column. And then the second class name is going to define its width. So we're going to make this one 2/3. Inside of there, we're going to just put plain paragraphs. And we're going to close the column. We're going to open another div for the second column. We're going to do the same sort of structure, column, class name, and then 1/3. Column 2 is also going to be a paragraph. And then this is actually where we're going to close our main. And then after that we add footer, which is our HTML5 footer element. Inside of footer we'll put an H3. And that's all we need to do for this particular HTML. We're not going to add anything else to this. We're simply going to save this. And then we're going to go to our browser. We're going to open a file. And we're going to open blocks.html. Now I'm using Firefox because Firefox has a tool that allows you to preview what it would look like on a mobile device. So here's what it looks like on a computer screen. Not a lot going on, just some text. If I go to inspect, it pulls up my window. I can then preview in responsive mode. And close this down. So now I have it in responsive mode. This simulates what it would do on a mobile device, 360 by 640 pixels. And I can rotate it, see what happens when I turn this device. So I have that option. I have that turned on. I'm just going to leave this on, and then I'm going to open another window. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to open the file and leave it in a regular browser window. So this is what it's going to look like on a computer screen, a laptop or a desktop, and then over here is what it's going to look like on a phone or a mobile device. So we're going to be designing around this size initially, and then we're going to add some media queries to change what it looks like on the desktop laptop size. So we're looking at our CSS, and I'm going to split my screen here. And we'll put CSS on the right, HTML on the left. So now I can look at my CSS and my HTML at the same time. So the main thing I want to start off with is my largest element, which is going to be body. So for body, we're going to set some generic broad rules. I wonder if I can make these larger. Make it easier to read. There. That might help make it easier to read. So body, we're going to set font family. And we're going to do Tahoma with a backup of sans serif. We're going to set font size. And remember, this is for a mobile device, so we're going to not make it too big, 14 pixels. That's our base font size. We're going to set color, and I'm going to use RGB, almost black. And then we want a background. Let's do a background color. Oh, that's yellow. That works. So we're going to save this. We're going to go back. We're going to reload. So there's what it looks like on our device. There we go. Looks about the same. Got a yellow background. Sure, that'll work with our image. All right, so next down the line, we have the wrapper. And I'm just working my way down the HTML. So wrapper we're going to define flexibly. We're going to start by giving it a width. Yeah, we could just make it 100%, make it easy. 100% width, and then a max width of 1024 pixels. And in order to see what this is doing, I'm going to add a border. 1 pixel solid. We'll make it red. And we're going to have to change box sizing to border box to fit that within the 100% width. Because remember, changing box sizing to border box rolls border and padding into the width of the element. So let's save. Let's go back and we're going to take a preview. So this is what it's doing on my computer side. And you'll notice the red box is wrapper. You'll notice at a certain size it stops expanding. So it'll expand and expand and expand as much as it needs to, but then it stops. And that's the function of our max width. The other thing I want to do here is center it. So margin 0 auto centers the element. Go back and reload. There we go. That's better. And if we do this on the... Alright, so there it is on our mobile device. And it's already sort of flexible. By simply using percent width, we've made this, started making this flexible. Moving on to the next element, we have header. So our header, we're going to make it a width of 100%. We're not going to do much else with it. We might need to, remember we're working on the mobile device, so we got to make it look pretty on our cell phone. So our width of 100%, let's add a border, 1 pixel solid blue, just to give it an idea, give us an idea of what it looks like. Box sizing, border box. And we're going to set a height of 50 pixels on it. Save that, reload. That's what our header's doing. We also might think about centering the text. Looks a little better. Maybe 50 pixels isn't quite enough. We were going to do 60. I think we need to add a background to it as well. So we're going to add a background. That's what one of our GIFs is for, our images. So our background, we're going to use the shorthand. So we're going to use a color as a fallback. There we go, dark blue. Then we need a URL, images / sunset.jpg, center, no repeat, and we need to do background size cover. So if we save this, we reload our document, now we have an interesting background. Oh, maybe we need to set our H1 to a different color. So we can do that next. H1 color. It's a little better. Doesn't look very pretty over here. It's a small GIF, which we'll fix once we get into the media query. So our next step is moving on to nav. We're going to format nav very similarly to the header. So I'm just going to copy some of this, paste it into nav. We don't need the height or the text align, so we're going to just leave it at that. And then we reload. There we go. Let's make it green so we can differentiate it. So now we have a green border around menu. We could do text align center also here. There we go. That helps us. So if we had several buttons in here, that would be 3 or 4 buttons might fit okay. Next we have main. And main we're really not going to do a whole lot with. We're just going to make a width of 100% because main is just basically an invisible container for our content that's going to change from page to page. What we really want to worry about is our div for both columns, column 1 and column 2. So we have a dot col and a dot 2/3 and a dot 1/3. So how do we define these? Well, we start by defining the column. So all columns need to float left. That's basically rule of thumb for columns is you always want to float them left. We set them box sizing to border box. We give them some padding left and right, so 0, maybe 5 pixels padding. Let's add a border just for this tutorial's purpose. 1 pixel solid. Maybe I'll make it orange. Save it. Then we define our left column and our right column, 2/3 and 1/3. And remember, we're still working around this mobile device, which at this point it's kind of messy looking because we haven't defined our 2 column divs yet. We just defined them as floating. So what we're going to do is 2/3. We're just going to set up to width of 100% for the mobile. Because we don't really want them to be columns on that small of a size. They look better, especially if there's a ton of text in them or pictures, to have them as rows. And then the last thing we want to do here is footer. Width of 100%. No, we're just going to do this. Width of 100%, border 1 pixel solid. Make it green. Border box height we don't need. Text align. We do want. The other thing we probably need to do with footer is tell it to clear. Because we don't want anything floating. So now we save it and we reload. There we go. There's our mobile version of the site. If we go over here and reload, the desktop version looks similar. Actually, pretty much the same. You're not going to see a lot of difference. In fact, the only difference you're going to see is the width attribute being flexible. So the next step we need to do is we need to create a media query to decide what's going to happen at this larger size. And then we add some rules into that media query to make that happen. So media, so we're going to call it screen media, and in parentheses we can set some parameters. So we're going to set a minimum width of 450 pixels. This is sort of set way somewhere between a cell phone device and a tablet. So between 450 and, I mean, we could set it a minimum of 760, but we want to just have, and I can set multiple media queries to set multiple changes between certain widths also. For now, we're going to keep it a little bit simple. So we're going to start our media query by redefining a few key size-related elements. Some are in the body, such as font size. We're going to jump that up to 18 pixels. We are going to change the header background. You can change images between media sizes using this media query. So our background, in fact, I'm just going to go up and copy from header. Nothing else is going to change except for maybe the height. So we'll do that first. Height, we'll make it 100 pixels. And then we'll add our background in there and our background size. And we're just going to change this from sunset JPEG to sunset GIF. So that's just changing the image in the header. Let's go ahead and see what we've done differently. So we go back to our browser. We reload. The mobile doesn't change. We're only changing what happens if size is larger than 450 pixels. So if we reload this, something missing. Oh, I don't want a semicolon there. There we go. There's the difference now. We have an element that changes size and background image between a large. So at this size, we've got an animated GIF going on in the background, and our font color isn't really working for us. We may have to change that to dark. And then on a mobile device, our background changes to a still image. Loads a lot faster on a cell phone. Cell phone users have to pay to download their content, so really the more you make them download, the more they have to spend money to view your site. So the next step may be to go in here and add an H1 element, a rule, saying we're going to change the color to there. So now we've got our font color changes to the desktop size also. Since our background image is changing, we can change our font color to be more readable. Our font size also changes too. You'll notice a subtle change. It's not significant, but it is a subtle change in font size. So the next thing we need to do is we need to define the two columns. 2/3 becomes width of 66.66%, and 1/3 becomes the remainder of 33.33%. We save, we reload, and now we have two columns on our desktop size, which once we get down to mobile size, shift to become two rows. It's similar in layout. It is the same layout as in the PNG here. It's just there's not as much space. Things are aligned a little bit differently. And that's how you would create a very basic responsive website using the media query. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.